welcome all of you. This is very exciting. This is the Westmont Downtown Series, Conversations About Things That Matter. I'm Bobby Kinnear, and I'm a member of the Westmont Foundation Board. And it is the Foundation Board that sponsors the Westmont Downtown Series, which began in October 2005. And I bet many of you have been going to every single one of them since then, right? Raise your hands. No. Okay. Anyway, the series, as you know, highlights important topics of the day, and the information is brought to you by our amazing Westmont faculty. This series is a gift to our community, and the goal is for us to enjoy meaningful and substantive and lively conversations, so please ask every single question that you have in mind. I might add, there's nothing more interesting than new information that the perspective from those who study it. This is the second talk of our 2011-12 series. There will be two more, one February 9th and the other April 12th, so write those down in your mental calendars. Please pick up your brochures, which will tell you about the next two. I have the honor to introduce to you Dr. Rick Pointer, Westmont's acting provost. He will introduce tonight's speaker, Professor Michelle Hughes, and I want to thank Dr. Pointer and Dr. Hughes for your gift of time. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Bobby. It is my great pleasure this evening to welcome you on behalf of the college and to introduce our speaker for this evening, Professor Michelle Hughes. Michelle came to Westmont, or I should say came back to Westmont 3 years ago as an assistant professor of education, where she teaches courses in the education department and supervises student teachers. Let me tell you a little bit about Professor Hughes before she comes to deliver her talk this evening on hot topics and highlights in public education. You may be wondering how we find or come up with topics, and that comes about as a result of conversations with the Westmont Foundation and several of us at Westmont. And as we met last spring, a number of issues came before us as possibilities, but there was a quick consensus around the need for further reflection about the current state of public education. Particularly here in Santa Barbara. We've just had an election this week where education has been certainly one of the issues in the city council race. And so these are things that demand careful attention and reflection. And I think you'll find this evening that Professor Hughes brings a great wealth of experience and wisdom and a good deal of hope and optimism to a topic that often can be perceived as almost inscrutable as to how to address all of the difficult challenges we face in the 21st century when it comes to public education. So just a few words about her background. She is a Westmont graduate. She earned a bachelor's degree and her teaching credential at Westmont, and then went on to become a public school teacher here in the area for 7 years at Goleta Valley Junior High. Then she pursued, or during that time, she pursued a master's degree in educational leadership and got an administrative services credential from California State University at Northridge. And from there, she transitioned into administrative work and spent 13 years at Dos Pueblos High School as a vice principal. You can well imagine that that role included a variety of duties and responsibilities. She tells me that she had responsibility over student discipline, teacher observation and evaluation, campus safety, truancy, the student body budgets, graduation and prom planning, staff development, athletic supervision, and I would say anything else that they thought was worthy of someone giving it serious attention. Included in that last category is the fact that she was the head editor for the school's National Blue Ribbon Grant, which was awarded from Washington, D.C. in the fall of 2000, a really impressive award for Dos Pueblos. The range of Michelle's activities today include not only her work at Westmont, but She is now pursuing a doctoral degree in education through George Fox University. The program is in Educational Foundations and Leadership Development. Meanwhile, she seems to find time somehow for continuing to have involvement in educational organizations here in Santa Barbara. Those include organizations entitled Partners in Education and the Global Leadership Connections team. She brings a tremendous warmth and graciousness to all that she does, not only with the students that she works with directly, but I can certainly attest with her colleagues as well. She teaches with passion and compassion. What she has in mind for us this evening, I think, are a series of insights and narratives from Santa Barbara's schools regarding the ways in which our schools are not only challenged, but the ways in which they're succeeding. And I think that message of hope is one that we all can benefit from hearing. Michelle will speak to us for about 40 to 45 minutes, and then we'll open it up for a time of questions and answers. I'll invite her simply to moderate that. We would encourage you to make your questions as concise as possible so that we can fit in as many questions as possible before finishing around 6:45. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Professor Michelle Hughes.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Rick, and thank you, audience, for coming out tonight and for showing that you care about public education. Before we get started, I'll give you a little more information on my background. First, I am a product of K-12 public schools and California public schools. My mother was a kindergarten and first grade teacher. And as Rick mentioned, I attended Westmont College and I earned a BA and teaching credential. I served 20 years in Santa Barbara's public schools as a junior high English teacher and a high school administrator. And currently in Westmont's education program, I have the privilege with my colleagues of supervising pre-professionals and student teachers in public school classrooms from Canalino Elementary in Carpinteria to Franklin Elementary downtown, and to Goleta Valley Junior High out in the Goodland. It's a joy to work with college students who feel called to the profession and have an unjaded hope and enthusiasm for the future. I also am married to a junior high school teacher who teaches and coaches in the public schools, and my 7 and 11-year-old children attend public elementary school. Why share all of this? Well, I want to tell you up front that I do have a bit of bias toward the public schools based on my experience. And because of my experiences, I am passionate about public education and training teachers for public schools. I also want to be sure and share that I believe that every parent needs to advocate for their children in school, educate themselves about our schools, and make the best decisions possible where to send their children to school. And that may include Santa Barbara's strong private schools. Thankfully, in our community, parents and families have a lot of educational choices for our children. I don't and won't claim to know it all. Many of you in the room have more knowledge and experience than I do. But I do have a passion for schools, for students, and learning. And I value and appreciate the work happening in our public schools. I pursued becoming a teacher not only because of the influence that my mother had on me, but also because of my high school English teacher, Mrs. Astro. Mrs. Astro tape-recorded lectures on the great works in literature for my senior English class in 1985 as she battled cancer from a hospital bed. As a result, she made a long-lasting impact on me and inspired my vocational choices. My priority tonight is to highlight and promote the successes we are having in our public schools. Before doing so, I'd like to say thank you to many of you in the community who shared stories of success with me. So many people came forward, called me, and sent me information to include in my talk tonight. And I don't have time to share everything, so I do hope at the end, when I'm finished, we'll have a time to share, and if any of you have some great stories of success, you can share those as well. Last year, I'm sure many of you saw or heard about the Waiting for Superman wave that came through U.S. movie theaters. The film highlighted the broken educational system we have in this country. Failing schools, low test scores, budget woes, class size, inequities in the system. This is the rhetoric that came out of the film. And as we are all aware, we associate these terms with public education because that's what we hear and read about in the media. Much of the time, the educational climate that we hear about is negative. Waiting for Superman started the conversation. It made a lot of people, parents, teachers, unions, and school personnel uncomfortable. But again, the conversation was started, and as a result, many people have educated themselves about the issues. I know firsthand that when I took a group of Westmont student teachers to see the movie last year, several came out frustrated with the system, but inspired and ready to enact change in their placements and now in their first teaching jobs. To further drive home this point, I recently heard a well-respected figure in the community make a reference to his bad spelling habits in front of a large group. He jokingly blamed his public education. Once he made the statement, he quickly recanted it and realized he might have offended many people in the group. I don't want to pick on my friend, but I share the example to set the stage and draw your attention to the need to shift the tone of the conversation, as well as the perceptions and attitudes about public education. In addition to seeing the movie, I attended a conference hosted by the California Council on Teacher Education last spring. The focus was about changing perceptions. Pedro Nogueira, activist and author, as well as professor of education at New York University, spoke at the conference on reclaiming the promise of public education. He encouraged the audience to shift the focus of attention away from a search for blame to a search for solutions to our public school problems. I'll say that again. He encouraged the audience to shift the focus of attention away from a search for blame to a search for solutions to our public school problems. This leads me to discuss some of the complex issues in our public schools. In order to prepare for tonight, I spent some time in dialogue with County Education Superintendent Bill Cerrone. He's well-versed in public school issues. Cerrone spoke about budget, one of education's biggest thorns. I heard him tell a group of educators and business professionals this fall, "We are in a perpetual budget crisis." He stated that California schools are on financial life support and mid-year cuts may be coming. Cerrone said that despite the fiscal crisis and the lower per pupil spending in California, the sun still shines in Santa Barbara's schools. The focus in public education is on all kids. At a time when resources are shortchanged, our community steps up to the plate for our kids. Superintendent Cerrone affirms that the Santa Barbara community strongly supports public education. This is evident with the bond measures that passed in recent years. Even in fiscally challenging times, school bonds and parcel taxes pass in Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara has pride and invests in its students. Santa Barbara wants to take care of its youth since they are the future of the community. The Scholarship Foundation is evidence of our commitment to education. The foundation awarded $7.3 million to 2,323 Santa Barbara County students last spring. $7.3 million. That is something to be proud of. Santa Barbarans are also uniquely and historically invested in our public schools. If you look at the 4 public high schools in town, school pride and traditions run deep. Families attend Santa Barbara High School generation after generation, and they all claim, once a dawn, see, you know. Carpinteria High School warriors are the pride of Carpinteria. The Royals feel a deep legacy at San Marcos High School, and the Dos Pueblos High School Chargers bleed blue and gold in athletic, music, and academic competitions. And I believe there's a crosstown rivalry tonight between San Marcos and the Chargers, 7 p.m., so you can move over there after this. Years ago, Horace Mann and John Dewey, 2 of our country's educational philosophers and reformers, labeled the public schools the greatest discovery made by man. Education is the great equalizer. Education is vital to and plays a special role in our society because it operates on more democratic principles than any other social institution. Public education has been described as the escalator to a better life. In 2010, the California PTA released a list of 10 reasons to support public education. I'll name a few from the list. First, public schools must meet the needs of all students, which is critical in our ever-expanding melting pot society. Public schools foster interaction and understanding among people of different ethnic, religious, and socioeconomic backgrounds. In other words, public schools are not exclusive. An additional reason to support public education is that the cost of dropouts affects us all. And lastly, children are a nation's future, and public education is a worthy investment of public funds. There are plenty of negatives and things to fix, but there are hidden treasures and stellar examples of achievement in our schools. One area that shines in Santa Barbara is in local partnerships. Our community harnesses needed resources for public education, and as previously mentioned, local dollars and resources for public schools aren't what they used to be. One light in Santa Barbara is Partners in Education. Partners is a nonprofit administered by the County Education Office. It connects schools, businesses, and organizations to improve public education. And did you know that Partners in Education has enlisted 2,800 volunteers from 2,000 organizations and businesses who have served 30,000 hours in 65 county schools and nonprofits? That's a lot of hours. Partners and its volunteers are making a hands-on difference in our community. This was noted in an editorial in Sunday's paper, and I'll share a little bit with you. The title is, "Hail to Students of San Marcos High School." You might have seen it. The writer says, "Recently, I volunteered to be an interviewer for students preparing for their future in the job world. The program was a joint effort among the school, Partners in Education, and teachers. It was designed as a mock interview where the students would present themselves as if applying for a job. Dress, resumes, conversation, eye contact, and handshakes were only part of what the interviewer judged and corrected. These students were so on and so together, it has renewed my faith in the future of this country." Every school has a story to tell and partnerships to brag about. La Patera Elementary School in Goleta is just one of the schools where partnerships abound. When asked about partnerships at her school, Principal Patty Santiago shared a long list, and I've had to trim it a little bit. First, she shared that La Patera has a reading program called Reading Plus, provided by the United Way. It serves 4th through 6th grade at-risk students to boost fluency and comprehension, and it's working. 70% of students using the Reading Plus program increased their test scores by 1 level this past year. La Patera also boasts a new school garden, which is being developed through a grant with the Orfila Foundation. And over 50 community volunteers helped plant the beautiful garden this fall. La Patera also hosts tutors and pre-professionals from UCSB and Westmont. They have a strings workshop with the Santa Barbara Symphony and instrumental music funded by the Goleta Education Fund. Principal Santiago told me that the school's test scores saw great gains this year, but more importantly, students and staff are happy and positive. La Patera is just one shining example of a local school utilizing partnerships and reaping the benefits. Partnerships in Santa Barbara also promote the arts. I Can, or the Incredible Children's Art Network, partners with the Santa Barbara Foundation as well as the Santa Barbara Museum of Art. I Can has arts programs in 5 elementary schools: Adelante, Franklin, Harding, Adams, and McKinley. And the program gives students access to quality arts learning opportunities as an essential piece of the social, emotional, and intellectual development of a child. And have you heard about the Student Art Fund started in 2006 by retired teachers and the Santa Barbara Art Association? The group suspected that financing for public school art classes in California would hit dead ends in the foreseeable future, and they started the Student Art Fund to provide support to local junior high and high schools. One recent project of merit includes last spring's Empty Bowls project, where 150 bowls were created by students in art classes and proceeds were donated to the Food Bank of Santa Barbara. Such a partnership truly enriches the education of our youth and changes the outlook and identity of schools for the better. Many organizations and partnerships benefit our schools, but our local students are also giving back to the community. High school seniors must complete 60 hours of community service in order to earn a diploma. If you consider each of the 4 high schools with graduating classes of approximately 500 students donating 60 hours of community service, each graduating class is donating 120,000 hours of service back into the community. That is something to smile about. Another primary focus in education is developing 21st century skills. In today's world, students not only have to compete with each other in California and the U.S., but they must compete in the global marketplace. The push in public education is to arm our students with 21st century skills. This is a shift in our thinking away from traditional methods. Students need to be equipped for future jobs requiring critical thinking, problem solving, teamwork, and creativity. They must be globally aware and be able to work collaboratively and innovatively using the new technology that continues to come into our lives. Students are engaged and wired to technology. If you've seen a teenager, you know that. They eat and breathe technology and get answers with the click of a mouse or a text message using smartphones, iPads, podcasts, and the internet. One leading educational expert says, learning should be an active process. When students use, apply, and adapt what they learn, they remember the information better and understand what is being taught. In other words, schools must reframe what they're already teaching so that students understand the significance of what they learn. Teachers need to teach skills in context to prepare kids to live in a world of constant change. I see this at home with my 6th grade daughter. I think she's touched a dictionary or a thesaurus only twice in the 7 years she has been in school. She instead sits at the family computer and uses dictionary.com, as well as other parent-approved websites, to look up vocabulary, do research, and write papers. A few weeks ago, I spoke with Dr. David Cash, superintendent of Santa Barbara Unified School District, and I asked him, what do you want the public to know about our schools? He responded, schools and teachers, and he does it like this. He's got a booming voice, if you know him. Schools and teachers must engage students. Dr. Cash says we are working on a transformation in the classroom from the traditional lecture format to students engaged in meaningful content, not memorization. California is using the Common Core as a framework to help us get there. If you haven't heard of the Common Core, it is a set of standards released in 2010 covering mathematics, English, and language arts, and includes literacy in history, social studies, science, and technical subjects. The National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers designed the rigorous standards. The Common Core does not dictate curriculum or teaching methods, but it is designed to help students reflect and apply knowledge and skills that they need for success in college and careers. Dr. Cash elaborated that the Common Core lays out a vision and a roadmap of what it means to be a literate person in the 21st century. One example of a teacher utilizing the Common Core is seen with Dos Pueblos High School history teacher Todd Rickman. In Todd's classroom, he has students put skills into action using a class set of iPads. Todd's students are using the iPads to read books, mark the text, to take notes, and even videotape projects. Todd is intentional about students doing more than memorizing facts. They problem solve. On the iPad, students can pull up an application that shows an atlas and the globe. They can zoom in and look at the Suez Canal and see where it goes, how it looks, and how it works. Todd told me we can find answers to questions in seconds, which adds to the teachable moments my students need. He can take his whole class on a virtual tour of the Eiffel Tower, which the class could never afford to visit on a field trip. Todd says technology is our kids' lives and reality today, and it's how they interact and learn. Todd is even piloting a program for families to purchase iPads for their kids. He has set up a payment plan for families who could never walk into an Apple store and purchase a $500 iPad. The payment plan allows for families to pay $20 a month or whatever they can afford until the total amount is paid. Once the full amount for the iPad is collected, the student gets a new iPad to take home and use in all of her classes. Jamie Devries, history and economics teacher at San Marcos High School and 2010-11's County Distinguished Educator, is another amazing teacher making content applicable to life inside and outside the classroom. Jamie teaches the fundamentals of money management and budgeting through hands-on fundraising projects. He tells a great story of learning and success. One day, he was driving around on the west side of Santa Barbara looking for a particular address, and he stopped and asked for directions. The person he asked recognized him and said, "Hi, Mr. Devries, I was in your class. Do you remember me? The address you were looking for is that way. Yeah, it's that way. And by the way, I just opened up a Roth IRA." It doesn't get much better than that. Jamie's financial literacy lessons transferred to real-life application outside the classroom. That is a teacher's biggest compliment. Kids are learning in different ways than you and I did. And teachers all over our community, like Todd and Jamie, continue to work hard to stay informed of best teaching practices and up to date with students. How else are 21st century skills being taught in our community? Well, the academies in our secondary schools are model programs for teaching 21st century skills in core subjects of interest. We have numerous academies and schools within schools in Santa Barbara. STEM, the Green Academy, Apple, International Baccalaureate, Core Knowledge, Dawn's Net Cafe, just to name a few. Think back to your high school days. Did you have many options for study? Would you have liked to study art and design and be a student at the Visual and Arts Design Academy at Santa Barbara High School? Would you have liked to study at the Culinary Arts Institute at Carpinteria High School? Let me tell you a little bit about that program. The Carpinteria High School program collaborates with Santa Barbara City College's School of Culinary Arts and Hotel Management. Students learn about the culinary industry and earn post-secondary options that include college admission as well as immediate workforce entry. If you're a Food Network fan, you may know that television chef and Food Revolution founder Jamie Oliver visited Carpinteria High School last year. He noted on national television that Carpinteria High School's kitchen is sustainable, producing food for students and staff made from scratch, grown at the school, and it has changed the food culture of the school. Jamie Oliver says, and I don't have a British accent, so imagine, they are not posh, but Carpinteria High School is doing it right. Would anyone else in the room like to study at the Engineering Academy at Dos Pueblos High School? It is a program for students to experience practical, project-based approaches to learning science, engineering, and sculpture. The New Cool, a newly released book, chronicles the 2009 robotics team at Dos Pueblos High School, and it was the Engineering Academy vision of teacher and MacArthur Fellow Amir Aboshair. There's a movie on the book in the works, and I, of course, have to mention that Amir Aboshair is a product of Santa Barbara's public schools. Lastly, would you have liked to have studied about the health industry at the Health Academy at San Marcos High School? San Marcos partners with Santa Barbara City College, Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, and the Regional Occupations Program. Students, through experiences and internships, graduate ready to apply their practical knowledge and critical thinking skills in the healthcare industry. I spoke with a parent a few nights ago whose daughter graduated from San Marcos High School's Health Academy, and she was admitted to both Santa Barbara City College's nursing program and then Cal State Channel Islands nursing program, and she is now on her way to obtaining her degree in nursing. Once again, these academy programs show collaboration between teacher innovation and local resources that result in student success. Teacher quality. The push for 21st century skills, partnerships, and promotion of our schools are all important. But the bottom line when it comes to student achievement boils down to teacher quality. Teacher quality makes the difference. Teachers are on the front line. I always tell my college students, you can do away with the desks, the textbooks, the technology, and fancy curriculum, but you cannot do away with the teacher. Teachers, in combination with their students, make the classroom tick. Steve Perry, school principal and CNN correspondent, indicates that good teachers teach all of the time. Teachers' minds are always at work. They live for the adrenaline rush that comes trying to figure out another way to teach a student to read or understand fractions. They live for the aha and teachable moments. Former Chancellor of Washington, D.C. Schools, Michelle Rhee, wrote in Time magazine this September, teachers are the most important school-based factor for student learning, more so than class size or dollars in the system. Published research out of Stanford University shows that if a child in the first grade has an ineffective teacher, she'll learn half as much in 1 year as she would with a good teacher. If the child has an ineffective teacher 3 years in a row, she'll likely never catch up. So let's take a little quiz. Can you name the last 5 Heisman Trophy winners? Anyone? Anyone? Name 10 people who won the Nobel Prize. That's true. How about the last 6 Academy Award winners for Best Picture? We don't always remember the headliners of yesterday. The applause died down and the 15 minutes of fame are up and the awards tarnish. Here's another quiz. Do you remember your favorite elementary school teacher? Junior high school teacher? High school or college professor? Think of one teacher or coach who helped you on your journey through school. This is an easier quiz, isn't it? Because teachers make the difference. The success of our public schools is found in the relationships and connections between students and teachers. The quality of a school is only as good as the people in it. Teaching is a service career with dedicated professionals investing in students and the future. Teachers inspire and excite us and make us want to learn and discover. A high school student once told me, students don't care about what teachers have to say in the classroom until we know teachers care about us. Last week, a high school senior told me, when teachers pay attention to us and help us, we pay attention in class. Isao Sugano, 6th grade teacher at Hope School, understands this. He says, the foundation for all my work with students starts from a respect and love for each student. I need to make sure that each student knows they are important, loved, and heard. Teacher quality matters, and how we train our teachers matters. We must continue to improve how we recruit and train teachers for the 21st century in order to prepare them for challenges in the classroom and so they remain in the profession for the long haul. We're lucky to live in a community where teacher education is valued. UCSB, Santa Barbara City College, Antioch, and Westmont work to prepare the best and the brightest for the teaching profession. The institutions partner with our schools and focus on teacher development, pedagogy, and hands-on clinical experiences in the schools. Local school districts and higher education institutions have even joined forces this fall as part of the California Alliance for Teacher Preparation in order to better network together locally to share expertise and approaches for teacher preparation. UCSB, for example, has partnered with one elementary school to create the Harding University Partnership School in a West Side neighborhood. And this month, the Education Department at Westmont hosted the first Let's Talk Teaching Conference for high school students to learn more about the teaching profession and college options. So who will be the next Steve Jobs? Who will be the next Bill Gates? Who will be the next CEO or Secretary of State? With quality teachers, we will develop the next generation that will contribute to society. Joanne Keynes, principal of La Cumbre High School, told me a story that will make you smile. She taught a student years ago named Marco. As she walked to the school parking lot one night, a car pulled up next to her and a young man jumped out. He startled her and said, "Do you remember me? It's Marco. I've driven by and seen you leaving before. This time, I wanted to stop and say thank you. I was in your class 15 years ago, and you told me never to give up. I did get into trouble, and I struggled after I left your class. I even went to jail for a while. But I never forgot the message you gave us in class, the message to never give up. Marco went on to tell Joanne that he not only finished high school, but he finished college, is a mentor to students, and an accountant. Joanne and Marco's story can serve as a great reminder that teachers do more than teach. They connect with students and tackle more than academics. Years ago, a student wrote a note to me in his finest 7th grade cursive handwriting. I've kept the note in a frame and looked at it many times over the years. The note helps me remember why I became a teacher and why I chose to teach in Santa Barbara. Dear Mrs. Hughes, thank you for taking the effort to help others notice the wonders of the written word. I truly appreciate you dedicating your working career to revealing great authors to kids. If it weren't for teachers, the world would bear a very grim, foreboding future. You can see why I saved that note all these years. It's a good read on a bad day. In conclusion, there isn't a secret ingredient or secret sauce to mending what's not working in public education. There isn't a quick fix to changing the tone of the conversation about the educational landscape that looks so different than it has in the past. So please indulge me as I offer a few suggestions in the hope we can work together. First, let's educate ourselves about the public schools. Let's visit, invest, and volunteer in our schools. All of our schools welcome your involvement, your wisdom, your time, and your experience. Secondly, let's focus on and talk about teacher quality. Let's promote and value the profession by telling the positive stories of what's going on in our schools. Talk to teachers. Ask them to tell you a few stories. Ask them what's going on in their classroom. Most could talk for hours and hours and hours. Lastly, we can always work to change the conversation by writing and talking to school board members, as well as our state legislature and representatives. My hope is that although I've just skimmed the surface and highlighted only a few of the hidden treasures of success found in Santa Barbara, we can change the conversation. We can, but we must keep asking what is best for kids. If we put children first in Santa Barbara, we will always win. Thank you very much. I welcome your questions. I'd love to hear your stories, brief, as was mentioned earlier, and let's continue the conversation. Thank you very much.